Zeophates, oxygen not included, tutorials, tips, and tricks. Welcome everybody to another oxygen not included, tips, tricks, and everything else video. Today I'm going to go over, well, really I'm going to be going over plants. So the first thing is what you need to know about them, how you work with them, and everything else like this. First thing is, each plant has their own requirements, which showed right here. There's a wild growth, and then there's a domestic growth. To grow anything on a farm plot or anything else like this, it has to meet both conditions. For it to grow in the wild, like these ones here, it only needs to meet the wild growth conditions. So why is this one not growing? Because it does require illumination. Can't grow in the dark. There are some plants that can only grow in the dark. But each plant has its own gas that it has to be grown in, certain air pressure, certain temperature, and it's got radiation limits and everything else like this. So for mealwood, it's pretty easy. It needs to be in oxygen, polluted oxygen, or carbon dioxide. It needs to be kept between 5 and 30 degrees Celsius, which everything's 21. Less than 4,600 rads. Sorry, it needs to be 1030. And that's pretty much it. It needs to be fertilized with dirt. Well, you saw here for bristle blossoms, it needs to be illuminated. Well, there's two ways to do this. Under furniture, you have ceiling lights. That'll show you by putting these lights in certain spots, that'll light up everything there. Two problems. One is, well, they require power. And the less things you need to power, especially early on, the better. What's one other way you can do it? Well, you could simply turn around and let's build it. This is going to use shine bugs. Why? Because if you go to the light overlay, these guys give off light. So I'm going to build along here, and I'm going to give, let's go 6 internal. And of course, you're going to need a way for the dupes to get in. And you can tile this and repeat this all you want. So the first stage is we're going to get the doors in. Second stage, what we're going to do is we're going to get our tiles in. Now, because we're doing this for bristle blossom, which require light, you can either do the farm tile, which is require our dupes to come in and constantly fertilize things. Or you can set it up so, well, we've got this rather large reservoir of water down here. So let's use it. So we're going to set this to our bristle blossom seeds. Quick set priority 9 so they'll get planted. And let's get the plumbing actually fully operational. That's going to have water pumping out of our storage tank, flowing up. And they're going to flow into the various different tiles. And that's going to happen until, well, the power runs out. We'll get to more power generations later. So while that's doing that, one of the other things is, if you're looking at the light sensor, the printing pod gives off light. Now here's the thing. The printing pod gives off light 24/7. It never goes out, irregardless of what's going on. So by having the bristle blossoms planted here, you can use the planter boxes, you can use whatever. By having them printed here, or planted here, this will always light these up. So they will always have light, they'll always be growing. As long as the rest of the atmosphere conditions are met. So, what do we need for over here? Well, the other thing we're going to do is we're going to come in here, we're going to get a critter drop off. We're going to set it to literally one critter. We only want one critter in here. And we're going to set it to Shine Bug or Shine Nymph. One of the other things we're going to do is we're going to make another incubator. And this one is going to be set to incubate Shine Nymph eggs continuously at a high priority. I'm not going to connect this into the power grid. I don't need to. So one of the other things I'm now going to do, because I'm really thinking about it, is I'm going to come back into here. I'm going to find my egg cracker. That's going to get put there. And in here, Shine Nymph eggs are going to be set to be cracked forever. So I'm going to constantly get some egg. One thing to be aware of when it comes to nymphs and any mob is I wrangle that one and that one. When they are wrangled, they will fall to the ground. And in the case of this one, he's going to fall underwater, and if you don't have your priorities set up right, he is going to die because he will drown. Luckily, I got my priorities set right. So now, if we look at things, inside here, this shine bug is pretty much always going to be illuminating all 5 of these. Every now and then, this one in the end is not going to be lit up. But, so these are going to constantly grow. And this is not going to produce heat. Again, as long as you got shine nymphs, you can keep stacking the system. And as long as you make sure that these bristle blossoms get their 20 kilograms of water per cycle, they'll continue growing. So that's one method of food. And of course, whenever they get around to planting these things. This is stable. This is tricky. Normally, for wild bugs, they will lay an egg before they die. Because their old age here is, well, that second there is how many cycles they will live. So Shine Nymph will live 25 cycles. Sometime before that age hits, it's going to lay an egg. Usually right before it dies. It's not a big deal in here because, well, it's going to drop the egg. One of them is going to come in here and get cycled. The other is just going to sit there. Now, that's the problem, is it's just going to sit there. Because then that thing's going to come over here and get eaten. So we don't actually want that to happen. By shutting that off, what it's going to do is it's going to make so the Shine Nymph egg is just going to drop. It'll eventually hatch and then repopulate there. This is just to ensure we always have one. So one thing that spotted here, we now have sage hatch eggs. So I'm actually going to turn around and set one of our hatcheries here to sage. Because I'm going to come into here. I'm going to shut that off until this sage egg hatches. And keep in mind, all this stuff here is right now reliably being run by 4 dupes. Not built, but being run reliably. It's being done by 4 dupes. And usually by now in cycle 21, I usually would have had between 8 and 16 dupes. Because I generally try to run 4 dupes per shift, and I generally try to get up to 20 dupes. So that right there, you of course can get some eggs and everything else like this through in here. So that right there. See, now the sage hatch has gone in there. Sage hatch eggs are, they definitely eat organic, but they can also turn around and let's actually go in here because we don't want you set for that. Yeah, actually, might as well. Now we'll actually set them to eat the clay. Because I'm producing it from this system, so might as well give them clay to eat. Really? You're working down there for some reason. So now we've got our bristle blossoms growing. That is one of our going to be our major food groups. So now going into here, I'm actually going to just go into our actual entries, and we're going to actually look at the plants a little bit more closely. There's various different foods like fried mushrooms and the like. Each of these fruits, they all require their own certain conditions to grow. So it ultimately depends entirely on how you want stuff to work. It's not food that I want, it's plants. Each of these plants does their own thing. They do it in their own time. Some, like Joya's, all they turn around and do is provide decor. Others, like the arbor tree, these guys provide wood, which is a source of power. You can also turn around and turn it into a bunch of stuff. Like pips love eating this stuff. So really, what you're turning around and farming and what you're after is going to depend entirely on how you need to grow stuff. So always keep in mind the growth requirements, look them up for whatever plant you're trying to plant. By this point in time, you already know how to use liquid locks. You already know how to properly filter some gases. We'll get into other filtering later. And if you paid attention to the tutorials, I've already shown you. So you, right now, have all the tools at your disposal to set up whatever environment you need. So you can now, theoretically, with the sole exception of temperature, you can now grow any plant. So have a good one.